For this drawing I'm using Strathmore Bristol board with blue pens, and I first start off with making a grid and outlining the shoes, the edges, with a pencil. And I'm using the grid to keep proportions straight and improve my drawing sharpness. Once that's in place, I'll take a pen and outline it real lightly, because we're going to erase all the pencil marks. And you can see that in the background, it's sitting on a couch in the reference photo, but in the background I also just put a little line to indicate something to put shade behind it. So I put a first layer of hatching, keeping the tone real light, and we'll go back in with a few more layers over those and really strengthen the areas that are really dark, and we'll begin creating that nice contrast to indicate a highlight. And we're using the white of the paper to be the highlight on the shoe for our monochromatic drawing. And just be reminded, once you use a pen quite a bit, you want to switch it out with another one, because the tip gets really hot and it can clog. So here's what we've got so far. You can see I'm starting on a second layer in some spots, and inside the shoe is one of the darkest tones in the drawing. And pay careful attention to the tips of the Pointe shoes. There's some really nice thread work to shade around the threads, and on the very tips there's a nice shadow that's right next to it. And the source of the light in this is coming from the left, so it's going to be highlights kind of all around. It's really reflective satin kind of material, but the cast shadow from the shoe will be to the right. And then the straps of the shoes also have an interesting texture to be real careful of, and you can see that there's little ribs in there. So moving along with their second bit of hatching, I even do some cross hatching in certain spots where the tone is really rich. And you've got a different pen there. I used a really dark pen, the 1.6 millimeter ballpoint pen, to really strengthen those areas. You can see inside the shoe it's really strong tone. And if you want to blend certain areas too, don't forget you can take your finger and pull the tone across the paper, or if you have a tissue, that also would be great for that reason. And an eraser will work really well. If you have a highlight, you can erase and keep those highlight areas real nice and clean. An eraser won't pull off all the tone, but it will pull some of your ballpoint tone off, so just be careful of that. And you can see in the background the vertical part of the couch cushion area. I just did some tone to, and some cross-hatching tone to make it, really pop out against the highlights in the dark of the shoe. And then working on the straps. The straps are under the shoe and behind the shoe and all around. They're really long straps. So all of that gets a nice vertical kind of a hatching, if you will. So being careful of that, you'll have a nice ribbed look to it. And notice in places where it's vertical and it's twisted, just be careful to follow the direction of the strap. And then start to work around and strengthen the tone and the shade, all of the stitching around the ribs of the top of the shoe and the tips of the shoe. And I used the tissue to blend a few more times, because I wanted it to look as smooth as possible on the surface of the shoe. And here's our final drawing.